Going live today to talk about, is mold causing your symptoms? And this is a big one because I do see mold in a lot of my patients, everything from eczema to psoriasis to chronic fatigue and muscle aches and pains, arthritis, etc. And mold can be a big reason that you might have the symptoms you're experiencing. So let's dive into it today. And please go ahead and ask all the questions you would like. I am live here, so I would love to answer your questions. The first question is, what are the symptoms? And this might be a little small if you're on Instagram checking this out, but it might be a little small. But there are so many symptoms that can be a part of mold toxicity where you would maybe want to test for mycotoxins. And everything from respiratory issues to allergic reactions, gastrointestinal issues, musculoskeletal symptoms, neurological symptoms, skin symptoms, and other symptoms like chronic fatigue, mood swings, depression, anxiety. I mean, you name it. Mold might have a place in what is going on in terms of the root causes of the symptoms you're experiencing, especially if you're experiencing just a weird just feels like there isn't an answer. Mold might be one of the issues you're dealing with. And a big population of patients I treat are eczema patients and people with skin disease and psoriasis. And mold is implicated in a lot of these patients I see. And we will see two case studies in a little bit of patients where we uncovered mold, and mold was a big reason they were having the skin symptoms they were experiencing, but they also were experiencing fatigue and gastrointestinal symptoms, respiratory, nasal symptoms. So, mold can really touch so many symptoms. So, if you are having any chronic symptoms, this is something you might want to consider. Now, what does testing, like, how do you know whether you have a mold issue? And we call it mold illness. Encompasses all of those symptoms I was talking about. You may know if you have a mold issue by doing a what's called a mycotoxin panel. That is one way you can understand if you might have a mold issue. And one of the ways we really like to, just kind of look at this. So this is an example of, this is just a sample of somebody who had mycotoxins, not a large amount, but this is a total tox burden test. And this is something that we do offer on our website. If you want to actually just order this directly, that's something that you guys can do. Or if you're us, this is a really common test that we like to order, which will test not only mycotoxins, but other toxins as well, because other toxins could also be playing a role in this process, everything from heavy metals to environmental toxins. Okay. Um, so that is a test that's available to everybody. And it's a really great, like maybe you don't know that you have a mold issue. You're not sure that you have a mold issue. It's a great screen to see, okay, maybe I have a mold issue. Maybe the things I'm dealing with have to do with mold, or maybe they have to do with other toxins like environmental toxins and heavy metal toxins. So it's a really great screen to just check, okay, do I have any toxic burden on my system? And again, these are the symptoms you may experience if you have toxic burden, and this may be too small for you. But as you can see, there are a plethora of symptoms that could be problematic here. Everything from respiratory issues to if you have a lot of allergies and sensitivities to food, but even to the environment. I find that very related to mold as well. Gastrointestinal issues like bloating, abdominal pain, diarrhea, even musculoskeletal pains like joint pains and neurological symptoms like headaches. And then definitely my skin disease people, eczema, psoriasis. I find a lot of mold in that population as well too. All right. So, what can you do if you think that you might have mold? Well, you want to, either grab a kit, which you can actually grab on our On my links in my bio at the product recommendations, just navigate to test kits. You can see I just did an immunolytics test myself, which basically checked for mold in my home. And unfortunately, we did find that there was mold because I have been having some leaks in my windows. The sealant is not really great. So we're actually going to replace all those windows. I also, in my kitchen area, there was a leak. And so unfortunately, my kitchen test was really high and we did not know there was mold there, but we know that there was a leak. And so with that, we now know, okay, there's likely mold. And when we kind of chipped away at that leak area, we can see that there's mold now. So it's a really great thing to do to just, maybe there is a mold problem, maybe you don't know it. If you've ever had a leak in your home, there is a very high likelihood that you could have mold. Okay. So immunolytics is a really great kind of first line. And just check out the link in my bio, product recommendations, again, test kits. And then an ERMI test is something that if you work with somebody, you work with a professional, they may do an ERMI test. This is a little more expensive, but it can be a little more accurate. So if the immunolytics test finds, okay, there might be mold, I do recommend hiring someone and really getting a professional look at, first of all, how big the problem is, and then how do you remediate it. I really like Moldy. If you actually join our program, we do give you access to this. It's something you may be able to look out online. It's just a kind of a documentary about mold and mold illness. So definitely check that out. Some things you want to do to just prevent mold and make sure that you are having really good ventilation indoors. So opening the windows, using exhaust fans, and making sure that everything is really well ventilated will inhibit mold growth. And looking at your windows, making sure that the windows are really tightly sealed is a really important thing to do as well too. I really like having air filters in the home because in case there is mold, it will filter that out of the air. I just posted on Instagram my air doctor, which I really love, again, available in the product recommendations. And my air doctor, I just changed that thing after 3 months and it's looking really gross. And it's just crazy how, you know, toxic our environments are in our homes and how we should be cleaning up the air in our homes. Okay. You regularly want to inspect your HVAC systems and clean them up, and you will want to hire someone likely to do that because you can have mold in the HVAC system, the air ducts, and then those spores are going to circulate when you. So before winter every year, we always get ours checked and cleaned out. Okay. If you have any water damage, you need to thoroughly clean and dry that water damage as soon as possible within 24 to 48 hours to make sure you prevent any mold growth. And then, make sure if you have any leaks or anything like that, you fix that immediately. So ours, we had a plumbing leak from our bathroom on top to our kitchen. And unfortunately, now there is mold growing there. So we will need to remediate that. Okay. So there's a couple of great options on our product recommendations page, or you can go to cleanbody.health/filters. And you can see Air Doctor is one that actually I have all of the above of here. So Air Doctor and Jafonda. I like both of these because they both have measurements for whether the air is toxic. So the Air Doctor basically turns red when there's a lot of particles in the air. And the Jafonda is really great because it also turns red, but it gives you the particle number. So that's another option. And the other option here is a personal air purifier that you can wear around your neck. I like to wear this if I'm on a long airplane flight, so that it can just kind of clean the air around my face. And of course, it's not going to clean, the whole entire area, but just around your face. And if you maybe work in an office that might have mold, it might be good to get your own personal air purifier. Those are really important things to do if you just can't remediate the home or the office. Okay. Um, General home, you want to make sure that you're not too humid and again, not too dry, especially if you have any skin conditions, but keeping the humidity below 50%. might help if you have mold growing in your home. You want to regularly clean and dust because there may be mold spores that just kind of settle on different areas. Um, and ensure that your clothes, dryers and stoves and all of that are vented correctly. And just doing a lot of prevention of having moisture kind of growing can be really helpful if you feel like you have mold. And if you go to our product recommendations, you can see our mold cleaners as well. You do want to make sure to get a P100 mask. I also just posted a reel about this where I was cleaning up the mold that was growing on my windowsill. So you need to make sure to protect yourself. And just like how we have probiotics for our bodies, there are actually probiotics for the home. There's a cool product called Home Biotic. So check out the link in my bio under the cleaners section, and you'll see Home Biotic, which is a probiotic for your home. Now, there's also mold in food. So that's an interesting thing that I see as well. I find molds that are from buildings, but I also find molds that are from foods. So you want to make sure to inspect your food before consuming, especially if you're consuming leftovers. And if any part of the food is moldy, just throw it out. You want to make sure to refrigerate your leftovers, very quickly after you're finished eating. Make sure to label and date and properly store those leftovers in an airtight container. And then you can reheat that food if you're going to eat it again. Just reheat it thoroughly to make sure you're killing any potential bacteria or mold. And then your refrigerator also grows a lot of mold. So make sure you clean up that refrigerator as well too. And then some leftover rules. Most cooked leftovers can be safely kept in the refrigerator for about 3 to 4 days. Um, but rice and pasta dishes you want to consume within 1 or 2 days because those can grow bacteria and mold a little bit faster. Vegetables and fruit should be eaten within 2 to 3 days if they're stored in the refrigerator, and baked goods and desserts 2 to 3 days. Okay, so sometimes some of us are eating leftovers that are really old, and that can be a little bit dangerous. So make sure that you don't go longer than about 3 to 4 days for most of your food, and rice and pasta no more than 1 or 2 days. Okay. Let's look at some case studies. So Jimmy, and if you want to watch his testimonial, click the testimonials button on my profile, and you can watch his testimonial where he was interviewed about his experience. Basically, he came to me and had some skin condition and eczema, and we were trying to uncover the root cause because he was tired of just putting topicals. He didn't want to use Dupixent, etc. And we ran a mycotoxin panel, and we did find a mycotoxin from a black mold. So, Stachybotrys is the name of that mold. And this is a very toxic version of mold. And as you can see, the body will show you that this is toxic by giving you skin symptoms and other symptoms. And so, his body was letting us know there is a problem. And like I say, eczema is an alarm system, and his alarm system was going off because of mold. This is him 4 months later. His skin is cleared. He's looking happy. He had to move out of that house. He got it remediated. And then we had to do a very thorough, what I call a clean mold cleanse, to cleanse him of the mold toxins that were in his system. And as you can see, when we clean the body, the skin clears up. So, oftentimes, for those of you who have skin conditions, we need to figure out what is the root cause. Why is this happening? Okay. This is a 1 year old with eczema, and actually, we did find mold, and we actually found that the mold was in the home, in her clothes. These people had to get rid of all of her clothes. And unfortunately, mold goes into all the porous materials in your home. So you need to get rid of a lot of the porous materials if you are having mold in your home. And that mold was leading to a dysbiosis in her system, a lot of food sensitivities, a lot of that was really problematic. And when we cleared the mold, we things started to get better. We also found that there were heavy metals in the system as well too. So that was something we also needed to address. Okay, so this can happen at all ages. I do find this in my little ones a lot, in terms of eczema. Okay, if you are interested in getting evaluated, then definitely let's meet. And I'd love to open it up to questions right now, but just to let you guys know how you can maybe access some of this information. A discovery consultation is a 25-minute virtual consultation with me. I will give you a hypothesis for why you have eczema or any, and I'll break the 3 steps of how we might address your symptoms. And the cost of this is normally $250, but I did offer a code the other day when I did a live, and we actually just extended it to expiring tonight at 9 p.m. And that code is live51, and it's for 50% off the discovery consultation. We do also offer a money back guarantee on that consultation, and you can apply this visit cost towards your care with us if you decide to work with us. And we do have a guarantee, as I said, on that discovery consultation. If you feel like you didn't understand the root causes of your symptoms in this discovery consultation. And we also have a program guarantee for anyone who joins us as well. If you are interested in just getting more resources just like this one, so the information I went through today is an excerpt from one of the modules we have in our program about cleaning up your environment. And we are also offering that same code, LIVE51, 50% off your first month of our membership, again, which expires tonight at 9 p.m. And maybe you're just interested in getting labs and understanding whether you might have a mycotoxin issue or a mold issue. Then you can also just order labs directly on our website at cleanbody.health/labs. That total tox burden test I was telling you all about is available for direct order. And then it does come with a consultation so that we can kind of discuss what your next steps might be if there are a lot of toxins that we found in your system. Okay. I would love to open it up to some questions right now. So, as a reminder, this is for information purposes only and educational purposes. You do need to get evaluated by someone, get some testing to understand whether this could be a problem for you. Just because you have some of the symptoms here doesn't mean you have mold, but it is something to think about. Okay. I would love to open it up to any questions. If anyone has any questions about mold, mold causing symptoms, anything like that, I would love to answer that right now. So please go ahead and type into the comments box or the chat box, and I would love to answer any of those questions right now. All right. So any questions whatsoever, but again, we are talking today about mold. Are your symptoms being caused by mold? And I do find that this is a very frequent problem for a lot of people who come into our practice, those with skin problems, those with gastrointestinal problems. If you are having aches and pains, joint pain, chronic fatigue, all of these could be potentially due to mold exposure and then what we call mold illness. Okay. All right. Now, someone is asking, can mold cause neutropenia in children? Absolutely. So, what this person is asking is if this can basically affect some of your white blood cells. And absolutely, when you have a chronic condition, a chronic infection, which mold is one of those chronic infections, this can absolutely affect your white blood cells where you may see lowered amounts of white blood cells. Initially, you may see higher white blood cells, and then you might see lower white blood cells later on. What are mold causing symptoms? Okay, so we went over this in the beginning. I know it's a little small, but I'm going to go back to that slide because there's so many symptoms, unfortunately. It's right here. So, and I know this might be a little small for everyone to see, but everything from respiratory issues, coughing, wheezing, shortness of breath, sinus congestion, sore throat, runny or congested nose. If these are chronic for you, you may want to think about mold. If you have a lot of allergic reactions, sneezing, itchy, watery eyes, skin rashes, asthma attacks, hay fever-like symptoms, again, mold. If you every year you have really bad allergies, you may want to think about mold. Gastrointestinal issues like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, loss of appetite. Musculoskeletal symptoms like muscle weakness, joint pain, muscle cramps, muscle aches. Neurological symptoms like headaches, memory problems, difficulty concentrating, confusion, dizziness, and fatigue. And skin symptoms, itchy skin, eczema, psoriasis, rashes, hives, if you have very sensitive skin. And then finally, other problems as well, mental health related like depression, anxiety, mood swings, chronic fatigue, if you're super sensitive to light and sound. So, again, people with mold will have different types of symptoms. So, that's why it can be really hard to identify whether mold is actually a problem for you without some testing. Okay. Um, and I do find, I would say in my eczema patients, almost everybody has mycotoxins because we are often eating those mycotoxins on our food. But for people with kind of environmental mold toxins, maybe about 50% of my patients who have, chronic symptoms, I see mold in those people and of varying severities, right? Okay, now let's see. Can it ever be fully removed from the body? Absolutely. So, first of all, you have to stop the exposure. Okay. If you are being exposed to mold, then, it's going to be a problem. And, it potentially just will never get better because you're just getting exposed, right? So, you need to change the exposure by either getting your home remediated. The other thing is, it could also be in your office. I find a lot of my college kids, their dorm rooms have a lot of mold. So that's another thing to really think about. And let's see, what else? And then, of course, it can be in your food. So that's another thing to think about. But if you're living in an environment, that is one thing you really need to get rid of. Now, if you get rid of that exposure to mold, now the next thing to do is we need to help your body to get rid of it. And first, we really need to, step one is optimize your health. When you are eating a lot of sugar, for example, you will potentially be feeding that mold, and that can be problematic. Um, and so we need to change the diet so that we're starving out the mold. And a lot of that has to do with not eating too much sugar, is one thing that's really important. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to do some protocols that we call our protocol the clean mold protocol. And this is a protocol where we are not only doing supplements, diet, we're doing treatments like infrared sauna and other things that will help those mycotoxins to get out of the system. Okay. What is the process of removing mold? Finding out if it's present in your household. Yes. So I talked about that earlier. I will be posting this video if you wanted to watch that again, but I'll answer now. So if you think you might have mold, I think a great place to start is to actually get an immunolytics test. It's a really inexpensive way of checking for mold. I did a reel on it and I just did a post on my results. So you can go to the link in my bio and click product recommendations, go to test kits, and there's a link to immunolytics there. Okay. And you can basically, you'll put these petri dishes around your home, and then there's also a swab where you can swab the areas to see what species of mold, if any, are growing in your home. Okay, then after that, if you do find mold that way, I would recommend maybe getting a professional out to identify where the mold is, how to remediate it, and then start remediating it. Unfortunately, this can be an expensive process, but a well worth it process when you think about the potential, hospital bills down the line when you're dealing with all these chronic symptoms and you kind of don't really understand why. Okay. Okay, and then any other questions? Okay, great. What is IR sauna? Great question. So IR sauna is also called infrared sauna, and this is one of my favorites for detoxing. It is basically a sauna that gets heated not just from heat, but from infrared energy. And infrared energy is like when you take your hands together and you just kind of rub your hands together and now you create heat within your hands. So the infrared energy is actually creating this movement in our bodies, which creates heat and it breaks down fat. We go into lipolysis where the fat's breaking down. And where we store a lot of these toxins is actually in our fat. And so when the fat breaks down, the toxins shoot out. And then because we're hot in there, we will also sweat. And so then you will get the release of toxins via your skin, which can be extremely helpful in the process. The other thing I think is really helpful with IR sauna is that you are actually heating the body, which is basically eliciting a fever like response. And that fever like response, as we know, is something that your body creates when you have an illness, an acute illness. But when your body has a chronic illness, your body may not elicit this fever response. So going in an IR sauna is really wonderful because you will elicit this fever like response, and that will potentially also help those bugs to get killed off. Okay. Great question. All right. Does anyone have any other questions about mold, whether mold is causing your symptoms, how to get tested, and what can you do to understand if maybe this is a problem for you? Again, meet me directly and talk about your situation and assess whether maybe mold might be an issue for you. We are offering 50% off our discovery consultation right now if you use the code LIVE51. It does expire tonight at 9 p.m. And also 50% off on our membership. Again, check the link in my bio, and 50% off the first month of your membership. And then if you are maybe just interested in assessing, do I have this problem? Do I have these issues? Because then maybe just get some testing. And the total tox burden test is available at cleanbody.health/labs. You can also click the link in my bio, order labs, and then you can just order labs directly. And then we will have a consultation to understand, to try to understand what those labs might mean for you. How do you treat mold in the body besides sauna? So, as I mentioned earlier, treating mold is multifactorial. This is not something that you can just address with only one treatment, in my opinion. So, you really need to tackle it from multiple points of view. And first off, again, the diet part is huge. If you are eating a lot of sugar, you are feeding that mold. And if you're eating a lot of toxic foods, you are causing inflammation in your body, which can help mold to proliferate. Then, number two, you need to be getting sleep and doing all the things that your body really needs for your body to heal because you have a chronic infection. Then, treatments like IR sauna are wonderful. And then, of course, supplements and antimicrobials, and then detoxification, because as the mold dies, the mold is then going to release toxins, which are called mycotoxins. And those mycotoxins get released into the system and can wreak havoc there, which is why if you do a detox process just right off the bat, you might have a lot of detox symptoms. So at Clean Body, we have 3 stages of healing that we like to go through. We really like to support the core first. Then we really like to support your drainage organs second. And finally, we cleanse you. I think a big problem out there, and one thing I don't want you guys to do is now you're thinking, oh my gosh, I might have mold. Let me do a mold detox. Problem is, you might not be ready for that mold detox right now. In order to be ready for a detox, your pathways need to be open. Your drainage organs need to be moving, your gut, your liver. All of those need to be working well in order for you to handle a detox process. So it is not the right thing to just go straight into detoxing mold. And the other thing that you also need to do is remove the exposures, right? If you're kind of treating it and still living in it, that may be problematic. Okay. What other questions do you guys have? Please go ahead and type into the chat box. Thank you so much for joining me today in this discussion about whether your symptoms might be caused by. If you did miss it, I will repost this so that you guys can watch it. If you have any questions, you can just DM me or message me. And again, if you wanted to take advantage of the 50% off the discovery consultation, make sure to use the code LIVE51 or 50% off your first month in our membership. Again, LIVE51, and that does expire tonight at 9 p.m. Okay. I do not see any questions coming in. So I will wait just another minute to see if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. I will be doing these, I'm going to call them lunch and learns. If you want to spend your lunch with me every Wednesday and Friday, I will be teaching you about just different things I really think are important for everybody to know, especially mold. I think it's a huge, huge problem. So put it on your reminders every Wednesday and Friday, 12:30. We are doing lunch and learn. Okay. And somebody's saying we currently live in a rental, so changing things like windows isn't an option. Is it still beneficial to cleanse and detox? Okay. If you live in a rental, it is your landlord's responsibility to fix any problems like mold, especially if you live in California. Um, you are very much protected. So you need to make sure that your landlord is taking responsibility for any problems that you are potentially having. So often what I recommend is get testing. Pay for an immunolytics kit. It's not too expensive. It's about 200 or so dollars. And get the testing done and see if there actually is a mold problem. Then if there is, then you will want to show this to your landlord and say, okay, we need to get this cleaned up, we need to get this remediated. And if they don't, this is something you could sue them. You could sue them for your medical bills and all of that. So yes, it's beneficial to cleanse and detox, but you do need to make sure that if you have an exposure, you're really addressing that exposure as well. And if your landlord, does not agree and you don't want to go into, arbitration, then you may just need to move, especially if it's a rental, then you at least have that opportunity to move. And when you look for a new rental, you will want to make sure that there's no mold there, right? So usually you can smell whether there's a muskiness. I was recently looking at homes, and in San Francisco, I found a lot of them were musky, and a lot of them, I'm pretty sure if we did some testing, it would come up with mold. So sometimes you can kind of smell it when you get in there. Don't ignore those things. Okay. Coffee and eczema. Okay, good question. When people join my program, I really like them to stop caffeine if they're dealing with any chronic issues, because caffeine really disrupts your hormonal systems. And oftentimes, especially in eczema, if you've been using steroids, your hormonal systems are likely already out of whack. And caffeine can kind of disrupt those. So I do like to really remove any type of drug that's causing a change in your body that's not needed. And you do want to think of coffee and caffeine as a drug. Okay, so I like to remove those things so that we can truly heal the body from the inside out. And then the body can really start doing the things it needs to do to heal, without those crutches that we use, like coffee, etc. Okay. All right, other questions. Thank you for those who have submitted questions so far. Again, I'm happy to answer any and everything. But we are talking today about mold. Is it causing your symptoms and how to address it? And someone is asking, is there any other way to know or test if a home has mold before buying or renting? You know what? It's a good question. I so I'll tell you, the immunolytics test I did, it took about 2 weeks. It was really fast. It took about 2 weeks to come in. And I don't know, renting might be a little more difficult because, it might be harder, but when you buy a home, I highly suggest you check for mold if possible, or when you're getting those inspections done, maybe that could be a requirement, is that you check the home for mold. I don't know if that's something that's part of a regular home inspection. I don't think it is. So I think it's something you would have to someone. I would recommend, if anyone's buying a home, I highly recommend you just hire a mold inspector and have that be part of the process of buying the home. And then if there's mold, depends on what type of mold, how bad it is, and maybe that inspector can help you in terms of is this going to be easy to remediate? How much is it going to cost? Because the person that I showed earlier, he actually had just bought that home, I believe, and then found out there was black mold, and then found out that the previous owner knew there was black mold there. And then that's problematic, right? So you just bought this home and now you're spending thousands of dollars remediating it. So yeah, okay. And oh, hello. This is actually someone I know. So it's a separate inspection. Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't think that it was part of the home inspection. I don't remember when I bought a home that they did that. I don't know if I knew about that at the time, but I don't remember them doing that. So you guys just have to get a separate inspection. Okay. All right, great. Any other questions? Again, we're talking about mold today. We're talking about whether mold could be a problem that's causing your symptoms. And these are great questions about before buying a home, should you check for mold? I think that is a great idea. Renting, I don't know. That may be a little harder, but maybe it's something that you could sign the lease or say, before we sign the lease, I'd like to just get the home inspected for mold, and maybe the landlord will say no, and then maybe that tells you that's not a place you want to live. But um I think it's important anywhere you live, whether you're renting or owning, and it is a huge problem. And I think one of the reasons it's such a big problem is because our homes are made of cheaper materials nowadays, and these cheaper materials grow mold more easily. They're more porous, and it's kind of something that's been happening over time, as with everything else, the toxins in our environment and all of that. So we're just seeing more and more chronic disease, and it's a really huge problem. All right. Okay. I don't know if I see any other questions coming in, so I'll just wait a couple more seconds here to see if any questions come in. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me. Again, we are doing a lunch and learn every Wednesday and Friday. I'm going to try this for a couple weeks and see how you guys like it. I really want to get out there and educate the masses on things you guys need to know. And if you feel that this live is going to help someone, definitely forward it to that person when I post it, which I'll post it right after this. Okay. And then Mold Finders is a great resource for how to look for red flags. Okay, great. I don't know if that's I'm not familiar with that, if that's a company or a website. So thank you for sharing that. All right, everyone. Any other questions? I'll wait one more second here. Otherwise, again, join me every Wednesday and Friday. I'm going to try this for a couple weeks. We're going to do a lunch and learn. If you guys have any ideas for topics, please DM me, and I would love to just talk about those topics. This one came up because I am inspecting my home for mold. And actually, my family has been experiencing it since the rainy season, because we started seeing mold on the windows. And so my daughter has been having some new and mild asthma and a little bit of eczema that's kind of new. My husband's having a little bit of seborrheic dermatitis, and I'm having some nasal congestion. So, and this is what happens. We kind of don't realize that the things that we need to look into are, okay, well, what are our exposures? Why is everyone having symptoms in my home? And because of what I do, I say, okay, I saw a little bit of mold on the window. Maybe that's it. And of course, we need to clean it. But before I cleaned it, I decided, let me just do a test. And unfortunately, we did find high levels of mold in my home. And I just posted the results if you guys want to see those. And now we're going to change all of our windows out, and we're going to see if that's improved, and just be on the lookout, because I will post my follow-up labs to see if changing our windows really helped with the mold situation. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye, everyone.